welcome back to Ministry Talks Podcast, everybody.
What's up, family?
Hey, so today, this is Season 6, Episode 2. And thank you guys for joining us so far. I mean, all of these seasons have been just really great. I think we jumped in pretty tight on Season 6, Episode 1.
Yeah.
Everything that you can do to reach us or to figure out who we are, where we are, buy me a coffee, send us an email, all the things we use here to record, all of that's down in the description.
Yeah.
So check it out. Make sure that you do that. Shout out to all of our supporters and all of our folks. We'll get to our sponsor here in a little bit.
We will.
But man, we're in it. Season 6, Episode 2.
We got listeners in Texas.
We do. We got listeners in Texas, listeners in Louisiana.
Man,
I know we got some listeners in California.
We do.
Shout out to Cali. A couple in Oregon. Like it's growing, man. I'm loving this.
And that's it. Season 6, Episode 1 was Hope is Not a Strategy.
Correct.
Love that episode.
Yeah.
If you haven't, go watch it. But finish this one first because what we're about to get into is ministry is.
Ministry is.
I've referred to this in seasons before, but I interned fresh out of high school, and it was called Life Internship.
Yes.
We were in partnership with Northwest University, so you had college credits or classes that you would take to get college credits.
Right.
And then there was a life application that you would do, like leadership and different things like that.
Right.
But can I be honest?
Yeah, go for it.
There are moments, even right now, that internship program did not prepare me for.
Oh, I hear that.
And I'm not saying that in a negative way.
Right.
What I'm saying is that there's side A, side B. Mm-hmm. There's the administrative side, the detail side, the things that, that's the business side.
That's
the admin side,
Mm-hmm.
There's things you got to do. There's finances, there's budgets, there's salaries, there's light bills. There's all of these things to the B side.
Right.
The side A is the attractive side. It's what you see when you walk in church on Sunday, what you see at your midweek, lights, camera, action, so to speak.
Right.
But there's other things that the intern program just didn't prepare me for.
Yeah.
Things like conversations I got to have when kids come to me about things.
Yeah.
The conversations I got to have with leaders about certain things.
Mm-hmm.
There were more conversations and more life application that took place after the program than what I thought.
Right.
And what I thought ministry was preaching.
Right. And that's what most people think ministry is.
What I thought ministry was, you show up, you preach, it's a relaxed schedule, you do this, you do that.
Relaxed schedule.
We're talking 18, 19-year-old Isaiah.
Okay, there you go.
And I'm over here just thinking like, yep, this is what you're supposed to do. But
man, I'd be good at that.
Oh man, I could do that. I could show up and do that. But ministry is way more than what you think it is.
So much more.
Ministry is way more than just showing up and preaching a 30 to 45-minute sermon.
Yeah.
Ministry is building that sermon, which is going to take days. Ministry is time consuming. Ministry is so many things. And we got a list. Yeah. But before we get into that list, 25 years.
Yeah.
What is ministry?
Wow. One of the reasons that this became a topic for us is when I went back to school. So I had been in ministry for about 15 years, and I was like, Lord, there has to be more, right? Mm-hmm. I had learned so many different lessons from so many different pastors, both good and bad, so many different experiences, both good and bad. And then I get to this class that actually is a very foundational ministry class. And Dr. Ben Gutierrez was my professor. Okay. And the reason that I remember that is because his book, Ministry Is, by Dave Earley and Ben Gutierrez. And that class changed my outlook on ministry. Now, I had already been in ministry, remember, for 15 years.
Were you senior pastor at this time?
Yes, I was. Okay. I was already a senior pastor.
Because I feel like when I met you, you were still grinding through school, which I thought was great.
And I'm sitting there, and this changed my entire perspective of what ministry really is. And one of the very biggest things and the very foundational thing that Dr. Gutierrez said was, ministry is all about people.
Ooh.
Okay.
Ministry is all about people.
And if we keep it, if we ever forget that ministry is about people, then you might as well be done in ministry.
Like, why is ministry about people, Pastor West?
It was because that's what Jesus cares about. That's what God cares about. He cares about people. He cares about souls. He cares about, his children. And if we do things that are, if we're just here to play music in ministry, as long as it's not affecting if it affects people in ministry, if it affects their lives, if you're leading them into Jesus, right? If you're leading them towards salvation, or you're leading them towards growing in Jesus, then yeah, you're in the ministry, because ministry is about people. We are in the people business.
We are. Can I ask you a question?
Go for it.
Might take us somewhere, but I just want to ask it. How come people who deal with church hurt, we did an episode on that.
Right.
How come people always say the church doesn't care about people?
Probably because of church hurt, but also because it's very easy, and I'm just going to say it like I feel it. It's very easy to put blame on people instead of like really trying to figure out where the foundation of the thing has come from. The church doesn't care about people. Okay, so what you're saying is we don't care about what you care about or what you want, or we're not caring about what sin you're trying to get past or get into or get out of,
or what you're navigating through.
Or what you're navigating through. We do. The flip side of that sometimes is I care about you, but if you never tell me what you're going through, how can I help? How am I supposed to be able to help?
So then the follow-up to the follow-up, I just seen a post.
Okay.
Where someone said, if you were at church or went to church or you experienced church, is your life better, worse?
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I'm reading through the comments of some of who used to be my youth leaders. Mm-hmm. One person said, my life is extremely better since not being at church. Then one person said, my life was amazing during that season and I needed it, but there's no way I'd ever go back because of whatever took place. Mm-hmm. I believe in my youthfulness, I think I was shielded to see a lot of things. We are in the people business. I'm glad you said that, because that's exactly right. But it just seems to me that people who have been hurt by the church, when they leave the church, one or two things I've heard, I'm pretty sure you've heard it, or I'm pretty sure you've heard something like it. The church, one, doesn't care about people, and or the church takes advantage.
Right.
So how can we, right, especially youth pastor Isaiah, ministering to Gen Z, loving them, nurturing them, trying to walk with them through things, how can I, and you being a senior pastor, what advice would you give to me and other fellow youth pastors? I'm just going to make it pastory for a moment, if that's all right.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to me or to the youth pastor or the youth leader listening in to maybe make sure that language that I'm hearing ahead of me doesn't happen behind me?
That's a really good question. I struggle with this mostly because the generation behind us, Gen Z, they want to be accepted in a broad sense. If I have this disease, if I have this mental illness, if I have all of these things, I want to be accepted. And if I'm not accepted or don't feel accepted or don't feel seen, then the church doesn't care about me.
Right.
So how do you navigate that so that the next generation doesn't feel that way? Yeah, I think biblically you still have you have to love, extravagant love, but exceedingly truthful truth. Okay. Yes, sir. So you can love somebody through hard things, right? That's another thing that ministry is. It's heavy, right? We go through a lot of heavy things.
Okay, talk about that.
We go through a lot of where, pastors or leaders or folks, like sometimes we have knee-jerk reactions, right? Yep. And that knee-jerk reaction of the person hurt another person, but church itself didn't hurt that person. So it was a person to a person, which is a whole different clarification. I think we talked about that in the last episode with the church hurt thing. But the reality is, if the next generation is going to not say the same thing, then we have to be ready to show up every time that they need us, but still show up with truth. And that's the thing that's the hardest part, because we are in a cultural season in humanity
right now,
where truth is not accepted. It's not liked. It's not, if we speak the truth of the Bible, it's considered hate speech.
Yeah.
And judgmental. But the reality is, if you are going to call yourself a Christ follower, and we are in life together and we are in ministry together, it's my responsibility just as much as it is yours to say, this is the truth of the word, and anything else outside of that, that's why I'm here to help. That's why I'm in the people business, is to keep people inside the grace and the love and the mercy of God.
So you mentioned heaviness, right?
Yeah.
Because ministry is heavy. And I think this episode's for ministry. I think this episode, well, it's titled Ministry Is, but for the pastors. And we'll get to like the moms and the CEOs, because I know that sometimes the workload can be heavy for the CEO.
Oh, yeah.
And the business manager. And I know the workload can be heavy for the mom or for the dad who's trying to take care of bills and make sure everything stays above float.
Right.
But while we're staying in this churchy moment, ministry does get heavy, because there have been so many conversations I've had to have that I didn't want to have. Right. Here's one thing that I learned in the program that I think is relevant, that I hold on to.
Okay.
As you grow in leadership, there are things that you do have to know that you don't want to know.
Yes.
And I remember hearing that and thinking,
yeah,
what does that mean? Well, now I'm getting it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, now I feel as if I have a true grasp of what that line means. The more you evolve and grow and develop in your leadership, there are things that you do have to know that you don't want to know.
Right.
But it comes with title. And I'm not saying that to be all like, oh, I have a title and I have to know.
Right.
There's some things I don't want to know.
Exactly.
And I could speak for you for that. Matter of fact, I could probably speak for every pastor listening. There are things you just don't want to know.
Right.
But because we are in the people business, and what does it say? If it's not about people, then it's not about Jesus.
Exactly.
Because Jesus was in the people business.
Yeah.
The next thing that we alluded to was it's heavy. Let's go to this one. Selfless.
Right.
Let's stop on selfless, and let's take a moment to thank our sponsor.
Hey, we just want to take a moment and thank the sponsor of today's show. You guys know that we drink coffee on this show all the time, and so it would be just perfect for our very first sponsor to be a coffee company. That's right. Beansforgiving.com. Beansforgiving.com. It's an extraordinary coffee with an extraordinary cause. Their signature blend is right here on the table, Sweet Jesus. We've been drinking that pretty much this whole season. He has 3 or 4 other blends that are fantastic. Beansforgiving.com. Extraordinary coffee with an extraordinary cause. You can find it online, beansforgiving.com. If you buy one, you give it, you enjoy. And here's the thing. 100% of the proceeds of the purchase of this coffee go to a nonprofit organization of your choice. That's right, a nonprofit organization of your choice. So not only do they not really make a lot of money on this, they support nonprofit organizations out there. They are also supporting this podcast by just giving us some coffee. So we want to make sure that we say thank you to Mr. Tony. Thank you for Beans for Giving, the company, beansforgiving.com. And so go check them out. And again, we receive nothing from your purchases, but I do have to tell you, it's good coffee with or without a little cream or sugar. It's great coffee by itself. So again, thank you to beansforgiving.com.
Thank you, Sweet Jesus.
That's right. Beans for Giving. Get you some. It's great stuff.
No, seriously, go get it.
Seriously.
No, I'm for real.
Get it's good stuff.
It's not here because we've already had it.
That's right.
It's not here because we already had it. Ministry is selfless.
Yes, ministry is selfless. And I'm going to liken that to the scripture where Jesus came and he says, I came to serve, not to be served. Right?
Expound on that.
And so when you tackle ministry, when you jump into ministry, you oftentimes give a lot more of yourself than you give to the people's expectations, and still sometimes it's not enough.
Oh my gosh. Can you say that again? And I'm not going to say anything, and I just want you to camp out there. Because that is so good.
You give, oftentimes we give to some people's expectations, and even that's not enough. That's living ministry as selfless. Because we pray for people, we work for people, we harvest for people, we study for people, we do all of this, so much so that if we're not careful, we can get into a season where we're feeding everybody and we forget to feed ourselves. That's selfless. Now, not saying that that's always a good thing, but that's what it means. Ministry is selfless. We are here for the betterment of. That's what agape means, right? Hebrew and Greek both, especially Greek. But the agape love of God is a selfless love. He wants for you more than you want for yourself. It's for your betterment. That's why he does and gives and shares and grows and prunes and disciplines. It's so that you can be better. And if that's the point of ministry, if that's how God operates, then when we operate that way, we're operating in the same selfless love of the Father.
But you said something, and I'm going to go back to it because I don't think it's just a ministry thing, but I think it's also a life thing. But
it is a life thing.
We do things for people the way we invest, the way we seek after, and it still not be enough.
Right. Oftentimes it can be, they can still expect more.
So then what happens when you're a mom cleaning your house and you don't get a thank you for that?
Right.
Or you're a student and you're doing your homework and you don't get the good job from the person who maybe you're looking to get that from.
Right.
You're running your business. Numbers are looking great. Things are going well. And you don't get the well done or the attaboy.
Yeah.
Or maybe you're busting your butt at work, showing up early, doing the thing that you're supposed to do. And they don't recognize you, so maybe you get overlooked for the raise. And it still not be enough. Man, you just hit something that I think that maybe that's probably where we are in today, especially today. We're doing so much, but it's not enough.
We can take it all the way back to Peter, right? So Peter was the jump first, ask questions later kind of guy.
Next to Paul, Peter's my guy now.
Right. So Peter did what he thought was expected of him, and it was still not enough. What are you talking about, Pastor West? Well, Garden of Gethsemane. Jesus is out there praying. He's sweating blood, right? With the intensity. Jesus walks over, and everybody's asleep, including Peter. Everybody asleep.
Snoring.
And Jesus says, can you not tarry 1 hour? Listen, the accuser's upon us kind of thing. And so the Roman soldiers show up. Judas is there, and what does Peter do? Peter pulls out his dagger, because this is what he feels is expected of him to do. He's there to defend Christ. And he cuts a dude's ear off.
The first shank that we ever saw.
And Jesus looks at Peter and is like, bruh. And he picks the ear up off the ground and he puts it back on the dude's head, and the guy's completely healed, and all the Roman soldiers are like freaking out.
And Peter's still just like.
And Peter's like, but I did what was expected of me.
Ooh.
Right? I did what I thought was expected of me. We see that in ministry, which is sometimes why it's super hard. Well, sometimes why it's super heavy. Sometimes why the selflessness gets overlooked is that we're doing what we feel is expected of us, and sometimes it just doesn't seem to be enough.
And sometimes ministry is nonstop.
It is nonstop.
And that is sometimes what people expect.
We don't always get a break. Now, there are seasons in ministry where we're just busting it.
That's it.
Right? And then there's seasons where we can take a breath and we're breathing a little bit. We've got our vacations or whatever. But, that 2:00 phone call or the email that hits us right as soon as we get back from vacation, like those things don't ever stop.
One of the things I'm learning to do, and Heather is helping me walk through this, is take your time.
Yeah.
I get something, let's do it right now. What I have learned over the summer has been take your time.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we just talked about this. We getting back. We're both coming off of, rest.
Mm-hmm.
I'm coming off of an 8-week rest from preaching. So now I'm back into the swing of things.
At it, yeah.
But I'm also learning, take my time. What Heather means by that is slow down.
Right.
Just relax. You just got the email. It is not requiring an immediate response right now.
Yeah.
And I'm learning. For me, if I can just slow down, respond. And then, no, I got a whole family. I still need to unpack I wish that sometimes people who work, well, let me make it more tailor-made and specific.
Okay.
For pastors, especially for youth pastors, young adult pastors, senior pastors, I wish that the congregation understood, like, we still have to go home and take care of our family.
Right.
I wish that when the CEO clocks off and the coworkers are upset, he still has to go home
and do. Yeah.
So ministry is, life is too. It's nonstop, but we also have to have a boundary.
Right.
And we also have to make sure to protect that boundary.
Yes.
And to do it without feeling upset and or feeling like guilty for taking breaks.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of breaks, we're going to take another one real quick.
Okay.
All right. Hey, welcome back. So I know we just said ministry is nonstop.
Yeah.
But we have to set boundaries.
Okay. Talk.
Okay. So this is hilarious, right? We're here. My phone's been ringing, right?
Yeah.
And this is what we have with our family because our family is the most important.
That's
all
it.
Right. So my daughters and my wife and my son, their phone calls always push through my phone, whether it's on work or sleep or do not disturb or any of that stuff. And so my boundary for them is broad, but for everybody else, it's, really small when I'm recording. That was my son. He was saying it's time to come eat because the sandwiches are here. And
I love Cole because Cole's like,
he's on it.
He was like, food's here.
Exactly.
But can I say something?
So
Can I say something?
Yeah, go
because
ahead.
this is such a raw moment.
Yeah.
That boundary has no limits.
Exactly. And there are some boundaries that need to be set tight. And there's some boundaries that can have a broad no limit.
I just got really excited about this question.
Okay, go for it.
What do you do about sister so-and-so who can care less about your boundary?
I don't. I just,
you know what I'm talking about?
I do.
You know what I'm talking about?
I do. Okay. In all honesty, I remind people that I am not the only one in ministry. You can talk to other people
on your team.
Right. Other folks on my team. Well, sister so-and-so only wants to talk to you. Well, then sister so-and-so are going to have to make an appointment in my calendar because calendar's the bad guy. Right? The calendar is the boundary.
Yes. The thing I love about this topic in particular is because ministry is life. Like our life is ministry.
Exactly.
So regardless of what we do on the pulpit on Wednesday and on Sunday, what we do on Friday or Saturday when I'm at the park or when I'm at the mall or if I'm going to get something to eat, my life is still ministry.
Exactly.
Like that never turns off because the greatest example is the example I live.
Right.
You know what I mean? My life should be an example,
right.
And my life should exemplify what I do.
Yeah.
Let's bring it here, and I think we can spend a lot of time. You said that the ministry is the overflow of your relationship, our relationship with Jesus.
Exactly.
Talk on that.
Ministry should be now, and I'm saying should be. I'm sorry to should on everybody, but this is how it works.
Yeah, we did an episode.
We did on that. It should be, and it oftentimes is reflective of your ministry to, or your love of and your love with Christ, right? So your relationship to Christ is what you have to draw from. I have been in this place, and there have been many people that I know as well. We try and minister from the bottom of a barrel. Well, what does that mean, Pastor Wes? It means that you're trying to do it by yourself and in your own efforts, in your own limitations, and in your own, like. So when we give from the bottom of our barrel, then we're not giving our best, but B, we're also not living a great example.
Jeez, come on, man.
Of how are we supposed to operate in relationship with Christ? And so ministry is and should be a direct reflection of our relationship with Christ. Well, how do you know that, Pastor West? Give me some scripture on that, Pastor West. Okay, we're going to stick with Peter.
Okay.
Right? Peter chopped the dude's ear off. Jesus healed it. Peter goes, and Jesus gets arrested. All of the other disciples flee. Peter sticks around, and he sees Jesus go through his stuff. And what happens? 3 times Peter denies Jesus, yeah. Right? So, but he was the only disciple to stick around enough to see Jesus go through his stuff. That's because he had this relationship with Jesus, right? And so when Jesus came back, right, he was risen before his ascension. And in John chapter 21, we see Jesus say this in verse 15. Jesus asked Simon Peter, "Simon, son of John, do you love me more than these?" Jesus he could have asked any question he wanted. He could have come up and said, "Peter, why did you deny me? Peter, did you really mean what you said?" Right? "Peter, do you understand that even though I was like away, I'm still God. I still know what was going on." He could have asked all these types of questions. What question did Jesus ask Peter?
Do you still love me?
It was a relationship question.
He never once pointed at what he did wrong.
He never once pointed to what he did wrong. He said, "Do you love me?" And Peter's answer was, "You know I love you," right? "You know the relationship I have." Then what was Jesus' answer after that?
So he asks him again. He asks him twice.
Well, no, what's Jesus' response? "Yes, Lord," Peter replied. "You know that I love you." What is Jesus' response? "Then do my work," right? "Feed my lambs."
Do my work.
I'm bringing our relationship back to where it needs to be. Do you love me? That's building that relationship back. The answer was, yes, you know I love you. And then Jesus is like, okay, then let's get to work.
Like it never happened.
Like it never happened.
That's heavy.
And that's why our relationship with Jesus is so important, because when we do mess up in ministry, when we do cause church hurt, when we do beat ourselves up over not meeting everybody's expectations or being enough, right? When we've carried the weight of ministry for so long, if we don't have a solid, growing, thriving relationship with Jesus, it's going to be heavier than it needs to be. We're going to do more than what we need to do, and we will never feel good enough or enough for anything in ministry. And that's why I think so many people leave ministry.
Can I ask 2 questions and close?
Yeah.
And when I say close, meaning like...
This is our 11th closing, so it's good. We're good. Well, we're on track.
I think this is a healthy... there are 2 questions that I feel are deep, but I feel it's not just for ministry.
Right. It's for life.
Is your well full?
That's good.
Is your well full? If not, why? Mm-hmm. If so, how do you maintain it to be full?
Yeah. That's a good one. And that's kind of what I alluded to a little earlier is, oftentimes we work and we give and we harvest and we give and we harvest and we give and we harvest and then we forget to eat. Like we forget to fill our own tank. So I'm going to liken that to, and I'm going to just say this raw. This is as a parent, as a CEO, as a friend, as a minister. If you don't have a solid relationship with Jesus, everything else will be affected. If you do have a solid relationship with Jesus, everything else will be affected.
Either way, there's a cause and effect.
But people know.
And they can feel it.
They can feel, and you feel it too. You feel it when you're giving from the bottom of the barrel. You feel it when the well is running dry, right? You feel it when those types of things happen. And if you feel it, others feel it too. Here's the example, and then we'll get to your last question here. I have somebody in our church. Love this woman. She might be watching this one later on, so I'm going to shout out. Shout out Janessa. Janessa Rains. Love you, lady.
Oh, Janessa.
Yeah. Come to me one day, raw as can be. She's a wonderful person because she's like, I don't know how to beat around the bush. She goes, what's going on? What are we doing with the church? Because it's been rough. I'm like, yeah, I know it's been rough. She's like, okay, you're our leader, and you love us. I know you love us. You're our leader. what are you doing? What are we doing? We just need to know. We just need you to lead us. And I was honest with her. I was like, hey, look, I'm fixing the plane in flight. I'm just trying to make sure that we're going to have enough gas and enough, tail and wings and landing gear and everything else, because like it had just been, the Henry House had been through so much.
Right.
And then Hope Church, former City View, Hope Church, like there was so much going on, especially during pandemic time, changing of staff and adopting a church and losing friends and losing ministry partners and gaining, all of that, just so much going on. But she was so straight with me, and she's like, what's going on? And I said, I've been giving from the bottom of the barrel, because I hadn't been in the place or the level of relationship with Jesus that I was supposed to be in, and everybody felt it.
That's good.
So to admit that was the beginning of the breakthrough. Ooh. To admit that was the beginning of get back into the presence, get back to fill the well, feed yourself, man, and then go feed other people. That was the beginning of that. What was your last question?
I think you answered it.
All right.
But I'm going to. What do you draw from? Yeah,
it's kind of the same answer. You have to, as a pastor, a husband, a leader, a wife, a business owner, you have to know where your source is, and your source is Jesus. You can do ministry without him, but it's so much better and so much more effective for the kingdom if you're doing it with him. Jesus says here to Simon Peter, do you love me? Asked him 3 times, do you love me? Yeah, feed my sheep, shepherd my people, right? Shepherd my sheep, feed my lambs, that kind of thing. And what Jesus was saying is, I know you've been through hard stuff. I know that you denied me, and I'm not pointing to that. Yeah. I want to know, do you really love me? And his answer was, yes, Lord, you know that I love you. Then get to work.
There are moments where I have drawn from Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
There are moments where I have drawn from Instagram and Facebook without even knowing a whole bunch of hours have went by, without creating a space and carving time.
The doom scroll?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I just recently got back into this space because I felt like after summer camp there was a tug on my heart.
All right.
To get back to morning devotion, morning prayer.
Yeah.
And that means I'm up. That means I'm drinking my coffee. I've been sitting and listening to William Augusto.
Okay.
3 hours of just soaking in his presence. That's what it's called.
All right.
And playing that. If I feel led to open my Bible, I open my Bible. If I feel led to just sit, I just sit. And it's just been a time of getting back to filling my cup.
Yeah.
There was a season in our youth ministry where it got real stale and stagnant. And it was because I stopped flowing in the gifting that God had placed inside of me.
Right.
And I had felt like some people were not comfortable with my gift, so I began to be quiet with, speaking into people's lives, prophetic, moving and flowing. I got a message that said, Isaiah, you need to dig deeper. You need to get excited. You need to dig the well again. You need to grab the tools. And I said, okay. And the moment that I began to open my mouth and begin to prophesy and begin to speak back into the lives of my leaders and the lives of my students, the energy, the atmosphere, the expectation began to rise and began to get excited.
Yeah.
And this is me encouraging, this is us encouraging the listener, the mother, the father, the coworker, the lead, the CEO, whoever you are, get back to the flow, get back to work. Don't stop doing it.
Yeah.
Episode 1 talked about hope is not a strategy. After God gives you the dream and the vision, go to Habakkuk 2, write it down. But it also says that at the right time, the vision will come. Do the work. I think that's our wave in season 6.
Yeah, maybe so.
I think it's do the work. Yeah. I think there's a work that needs to be done, and a deep work.
Because here's the thing. Ministry is hard work, but it's worth the work.
Man.
It's worth the work.
I love it. that's episode 2.
Yeah.
Thank you for being with us and joining us. And we've got all of the ways that you can contact us at the bottom on the description. We appreciate all of those who are supporting, and we appreciate all of those who are brand new. I pray that this content is encouraging to you. Season 6, episode 3. Check this out. Small church is nothing to apologize about.
That's right.
I'm not going to tell.
We're going to get into
I'm not going to tell them where that concept is because I can't wait to get into that.
Thank
you so much for joining us. We love you. We cannot wait to see you on the next episode.